Hey everybody, it's Hutch here, the Black Maverick, and this is Black Maverick Stories. I'm super excited to finally get to use these studio lights that I got. They're attached to my desk and they're kind of brightening things up because the last video was a little dark. And moving forward, I'm going to try to record at night, especially when we do some horror videos and things like that, so we can get that really cool, spooky ambiance. October's pulling up, and it's going to be a huge blast to tell a bunch of scary stories to you guys. So, let's see. To begin here, I want you all to think about the Avatar The Last Airbender series, okay? That series was critically acclaimed. I haven't found a person that disliked it. And then what would have happened if Korra was not the Avatar? What would have happened if a different waterbender became the Avatar? How would that have played out? So this is a what if story in the Avatar universe. It takes place during the time that Korra was supposed to be Avatar, except she's been replaced by someone new. And we're going to dive into this story right now. We first see the swamp as the Banyan Grove tree looms over a huge portion of it. If you can remember from the Avatar series, the Banyan Grove was just this humongous jungle. The tree, the canopy, was so vast. It was like you could look from one side and you couldn't see the other side. And when you were above this canopy, you could not see to the ground down below. You couldn't see the swamp down below, the tree, nothing. It was just leaves. Not until you finally passed through that thick canopy could you see these things. So, as the Banyan Grove tree looms over this huge portion of it, we see the surface. Under the tree, there are leaves, there are rivers, streams, there are vines everywhere. Lots of foliage, lots of greenery. There's little flies and ticks and different types of insects crawling around. And we see that the water is moving ever so calmly. It's kind of flowing back and forth, right? But all of a sudden, we see a bunch of fish splashing in the water. We can see their tails just splashing outside of it, and they're swimming down the stream. But why? We hear the chants of swamp benders as they give chase to these fish in their boats. A group of 4 boats being controlled by these swamp benders are swinging their arms to make the boats move. In the last boat, in the back, is a little girl who's matching the swamp bending form, but she's not keeping up. And as she stumbles a bit, someone catches her from falling off the boat. When she looks up, she sees it's her dad. He smiles at her before showing her how to move her arms, and then she smiles at him and follows his movements again. Later, the swamp benders travel back to their trip, or from their trip, with a net full of fish as they're singing. While they're singing, this little girl is trying to match the movements of those who are moving the boat, but she's still struggling. Behind her is a young alligator tortoise whose shell reaches up to the girl's knees. It lays there, appearing to be sleeping. Eventually, while the girl is walking with the alligator tortoise, she decides to start balancing on one of the vines, and she's singing to herself. Set my line in the riverbed, caught 10 fish and I killed them dead. Cut 'em and got 'em, and I tossed the head in the water to keep them cat gators fed. Now, if you remember, the cat gators are literally a mixture of catfish and alligators. They have those long, I'm not even sure what they are, maybe whiskers that catfish have, but they also have like a body and appearance of alligators. So while she's humming this song, her alligator tortoise is rocking its head to the melody, enjoying the music. It's clear that these two are extremely close to one another. I would say maybe closer than just a pet, but a friend. Now, she looks over. She sees something. She hears a scream. Hey! All of a sudden, she makes out a person. But it's not fully clear who this person is. But she hears it again. Hey! Now, this person looks like a child. They're wearing orange and yellow clothing. They have no hair on their head. And she notices as she follows after this child that he has an arrow on his head and it's blue. She's not really sure why he looks like that. To her, he looks extremely strange. But she follows him nevertheless because this can be a dangerous place if you don't know it. And she definitely has never seen him around, so he's probably not from here. She continues to follow this person. And then eventually, as she's ducking under vines, jumping over little tree roots and splashing in the water, passing through the foliage, smacking it out of her way, she comes upon this huge tent-like structure. It's not made out of what you would normally make tents out of, though. This is just made out of solid rock. So she's a little perturbed. She's never seen a structure like this. Not here. Not anywhere. She decides to get closer. But her alligator tortoise steps in the way. He's very protective. He senses that something could be wrong here. So, he stands in the way. But she assures her friend that it will be okay. It's going to be fine. She moves past him and then continues to walk closer to the tent. Then, she hears a different voice. I'd leave here if I were you, little girl. The voice comes from inside the house. The girl watches, and soon after she hears this voice, a middle-aged woman walks out of the house. This middle-aged woman is wearing gear that she's never quite seen before. It has a lot of greens in it, similar to her clothes. She loves the color green. It reminds her of the actual forest and the jungle, right? But her green is a little different. She sees these intricate designs, a lot of square type shapes. Okay? How did you see me from all the way in there? That's what the little girl asks. Because she thought she was being pretty quiet at this point. The person says, it doesn't matter. Get out of here. Not really interested in having that little girl there. You could hear the contention in her voice. She really just wants this girl to leave. Okay. But you're alone. It's dangerous to be alone in the swamp. That's why I travel with my friend Fifi. Fifi, remember, her alligator tortoise. He does one of these, For viewers that are listening, it kind of like tilts its head up and wiggles it back and forth pleasantly in agreement. Like it's music to its ears that it was called her friend. The older woman says, Fifi. And the little girl says, yeah, Fifi. We go everywhere together. My parents won't let me leave the village without her. How'd you find me? Well, I heard a voice and I followed this, looked like a little boy here. The woman looks around. Didn't sense a boy. Didn't see one. Well, my father says that everything in the swamp is connected and protected by the banyan tree. And maybe the banyan tree noticed you were alone So it led me here to you, so that you wouldn't have to be. Little girl, I have a house in the middle of nowhere. If I wanted to be found, I would have been. But I found you. The older woman falls silent. Why do you want to be alone? The little girl asks. I don't need to tell you that. Okay. It annoyed the older woman how quickly this girl was able to just accept whatever she was told, but also at the same time had so many questions. She didn't like being asked questions frequently, especially to strangers, but something about this girl seemed different. She couldn't help herself but to keep responding. That's when the little girl looked up and asked another question. How did you get that tent to look like that? She was trying to change the subject. Tent? That's a house. A house? What? What's a house? Yes, a house. It's that. I made it with earthbending. Earthbending? See, this little girl didn't know that earthbending was a thing. Her entire life, she's lived in this jungle. The only benders that are there are water benders, her people. And this is the first time she's seeing an outsider. She begins to ask the older woman about this earthbending, what it is. The woman explains to her that she has the ability to manipulate the earth as she sees fit, use it to build structures and even do some other things. The girl is so intrigued by that. She says, oh wow, well, if you can do that, can you teach me to do that? The older woman laughs and says, unless you were the avatar, there's no way that you'd be able to learn earthbending as well as waterbending. The little girl does not know what this woman is talking about. So she's like, what is an avatar? I've never even heard that word before. And now, the woman sits down and thinks about it. She tells her that the avatar is a being who can bend all the elements, starting with air, water, earth, and fire. And when the avatar dies, they'll reincarnate into the next element and will have to be trained all over again. The last avatar died a few years ago, and the next avatar has yet to be found. Well, why is it that the avatar can bend everything and we can't? This little girl asks. Because the avatar is meant to bring balance to the world. It's a symbol for hope and inspiration. Some say the avatar is the spirit of this very planet. Wow, the girl is in awe. You're pretty smart. The older woman scoffs. So, do you know anyone who can bend the other elements? Because you can bend earth and I can bend water. What about people who can bend fire? What's that word mean? Huh? The little girl was just kidding. She knows what no means. Right. I knew that. The woman takes a deep breath before sighing loudly. Do what you want, kid, but stay out of my way. No problem. Oh, by the way, what is your name? The woman looks at her, squints a little bit, stands up a little more sturdy than before, and says, Toph Beifong. Well, Toph Beifong, my name is Verdine, and it's so nice to meet you. Verdine waves as she's leaving, and Toph just stands there before entering her home. The next day, Verdine and a bunch of children are sitting on the floor listening to their teacher. Alright, listen up. The many beasts and creatures out there, knowing which ones to go after, flee from, or capture is very important. Some animals are more scared of you than you can be of it. but it's acting all tough, you see, roaring all loud like trying to scare you away. So, to keep the beast calm, you gotta make yourself seem not as scary. One way to do that is to simply make yourself smaller, see? If you're not trying to hunt it, it'll leave on its own. But knowing when to do it is a matter of life or death. Later, Verdine walks to her tent where her mother is making clothes. Verdine, the mother says, welcoming her home. How's school? It's alright. I was a bit distracted though. Why? The other day when exploring, I ran into a woman who says she's an earthbender. Her name is Toph. A woman outside the tribe. You need to be careful talking to people who aren't kin. But we're all connected, right? Yes, but there are things that make living creatures unique. A flower blooms just like any weed, but just because they're both green doesn't mean they feed the same. They have their own intentions, and it could be harmful to others. Verdine thinks to herself. Later, Verdine walks toward Toph's house with Fifi. I don't know, Fifi. There's something about Toph. I don't think she should be alone. Verdine walks back to Toph's house and sees Toph exiting as she approaches. You were actually serious about coming back. Of course. Verdine walks to a rock and sits on it. She takes a banjo from the back of Fifi's shell and begins to play it. Toph just looks at her. Today my teacher was talking about how to deal with beasts in the wild and how you are not supposed to show yourself as a threat. Wouldn't that be hard walking around with Fifi? Oh, you remembered her name. My old friend had a big fluffy animal that he went everywhere with. It could scare most animals. And then there's that gator tortoise. Most swamp benders eat animals. Some keep as pets, but not something like this. Yeah, some people think it's weird, but Fifi won't hurt anyone. Toph chuckles. Aang said Roku had a dragon, and he had Appa. You wouldn't happen to be the Avatar, would you? Toph questions jokingly. Imagine me discovering the next Avatar. That would be the day. I don't think I am. You said the Avatar can bend all the elements. I can only bend water. Look, see. Verdine bends water from a nearby river and makes a ring of ice around her before she uses the ice ring as a hula hoop. Toph is a bit amused. Months go as Verdine visits Toph at her home. Toph earthbends, moving rocks around, and Verdine watches. Other days, she's playing the banjo, or playing with her water bending, while sitting with Fifi. One day, while Toph is earthbending, practicing her forms, Verdine questions her. How did you do that? Bend earth? Yeah, your movements are so sturdy and strong. To bend earth, you need to be as stubborn as a rock. It is straightforward and to the point. Wow, I've always watched my kin and copied their movements, but you... Verdine stands and takes an earthbending stance. She decides to do some movements that she saw Toph do, and all of a sudden, a rock began to float. Toph notices. Did you just... The rock falls. I didn't know I could do that, Verdine says. She's pretty shocked. Verdine. You're the Avatar. What? No, you said they know all four. I just did the rock. No, they learn all four over time, and they have to learn it every time that they reincarnate. But you're a waterbender, and you just earthbend it. I can't believe it. You're the Avatar. And I'm the one who found you. What does that mean? That means, old friend, that I'm gonna train you. Or should I say, Twinkle Toes. Toph laughs. And that is where this story concludes for now. Now this was pretty fun reading. I'm not used to acting out so many different characters, but I'm sure as time goes on it'll get better and better. Tell me what you think down below, if you enjoyed the story and if you enjoy where it's going so far. I'm sure that the writer of this story would love to hear that, and it would inspire them to keep going. I personally think it's great, but I think a story like this, allowing the character to be developed a little more, especially earlier on, it's going to be pretty impressive. Plus, never saw a swamp bender as an avatar, that's for sure. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Remember that these videos are going to come out 7 p.m. every Wednesday, so stay tuned for next week's video. Next week, we're going to be jumping right back into the Mighty Martin series, and we're going to do Chapter 2, which I hope you guys tune in for, because it's going to be pretty crazy, alright? Anyways, thank you so much. Take care, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.